Good afternoon. As you can see, Frank is not in class today. I'm Alan Hines. A short time ago, Frank called me and said he would not be in class. And he said, Alan, you know, Dr. Kicklighter prefers that his class coordinator be intelligent, sophisticated, urbane, and charismatic. I was feeling pretty good. Then Frank said, that particular person was not available. So could you fill in? So I am. Here's the announcements. Turn off your cell phones and wear your name tags to all OLLI events. Check the roster and make sure you've signed in for today. Clean up after yourself. No pizza or beer in the auditorium. Trivia time for next Monday is canceled. The whole staff is going to other places and we're not able to be there. So no trivia next Monday. The Wisdom is tomorrow, April 21st. Civil Rights in My Bones by Julian McPhillips here at 2:30 to 4 o'clock. The annual meeting is May the 14th, 9:30 to 11 at the Auburn Church of Christ. The flyers in each location. And also at the tables out there, you'll see a summer schedule of speakers. So now, without further ado, a person who is intelligent, sophisticated, urbane, and charismatic, I give you Dr. Joseph Allen Kicklighter.
Alan, thank you very much. This is a topic I hope that you will really enjoy today. I know I certainly do, because these two individuals that get to be part of the title are very instrumental in the history of the late empire. The empire, if we consider it in its whole form, is going to be gone in the 5th century, and we will be there. But we are far from there because it is a slow, painful deterioration. So you see, we're just in the late 3rd century, if you want to think about it that way. So we have many, many steps to go before the end. These individuals, and I note in passing what I mentioned to you the very last thing when we were together last week. Remember, military people becoming emperors, dividing the empire into the eastern and western segments. I mentioned to you the perhaps seeking for an otherworldly, maybe even monotheistic religion. And I mentioned the military becoming all-powerful and all-important. With those points, as you bear them in mind, let us turn then to these individuals. First, Diocletian, or as he was originally, Diocles, and of course the better known Constantine. Diocletian was certainly a success story that Americans can appreciate. It's sort of like coming up from the little people to becoming great world ruler. If you ask where he's from, I'm going to say modern-day Croatia. But you understand there was no Croatia, so I don't want you to start thinking, well, he's a Croatian. No, but it was that part of the world. For those of us who are not up on our southeastern Europe, I guess we would just go Yugoslavia and let it go at that. But specifically, I think it's fair that this is Croatia and that part. What background? Well, we don't know a lot about it except to say Diocletian's family, they were peasants. It's simply that. And thanks to the Roman army, he made it big, made it very big. He is the individual, essentially, who ends the era of the barracks emperors, which is a tough job to do. It seems he had been the commander of the imperial bodyguard of the emperor before him. And maybe they were having a party or some social occasion, and that emperor met foul play among people he trusted. And so Diocletian was proclaimed by the guards as the new emperor. You're going, oh, could it have been foul play? Oh, I think so. I think so. And now, it's an interesting statue, isn't it? That's Diocletian. And he became emperor, and I don't think, after being in that position, ever look back. Once he becomes emperor, I mean, you know, ever since, what is it, Roosevelt, FDR, we talked about the 100 days, well, JFK, this is all very big. But in terms of this period, he really did go to it because he knew if he didn't, he wouldn't be emperor that long. I mean, again, any of you who are in the insurance business and your actuarial tables, the rate of emperor is coming and going and not optimistic, to put it. So you need to get busy. You got 100 days. You had that 100 days, you would be doing right well. In addition, the idea is it's not only my reign that I'm concerned about, but it must be the life of the empire. And so, in order to do this, we must get past the past, if I may say that. Get it? Past the past. While respecting it, this isn't it. We have to move on. Because it's changed. It's now, Carol, the dominate from dominus. Yeah, masculine, second, yeah. So declension people, just remember that. Get it? Domination, dominating. The dominate. You say, but where are our rights? We want to participate. We want to share. Get over it. You know, that's part of your cultural heritage, okay? So you can read about that in the books. That's why we have the books about it. That was in the Principate. And you say, I wonder if Diocletian would enjoy a few chapters of Livy or Ovid. I don't think so. I imagine he knew a little Latin, sort of, you know, conversational Latin. But I doubt he was into the histories. He was a noun kind of guy. He was a man with a plan. He definitely was an individual who intended to stay in power. And he was, as we would say today, career military. You know, it's not like, oh, I want to complete my years and move on to hobbies or other interests. No, he intended to be ruler and a strong, powerful ruler. And guess what? He got to, and he actually got to retire. Yay! He got to die in his bed. Yay! I mean, all of these exciting things that we take for granted, Diocletian got to do. And it's, let's face it, not usual in his line of work. he developed, I think with encouragement from previous emperors, a kind of cult of emperor. And you say, do we really need a cult? Well, it's good for the people. You know what we call it in the military, esprit de corps, you know that? And they need me. They want to worship me. It's okay if you want to call me God, okay? That's all right. Don't apologize. I understand you need this. And so I guess they had consultants from Persia who explained to them, you know, how they have consultants, everybody has a consultant. So they had some guy from the Persian court explain how to do everything. Because, as you see, he had to be received, you know, he comes out, it's almost like the time on Swiss clock, and he comes out, and exactly, and then when he comes out, then everybody gets down. I don't mean that in a dance way. I meant getting down, you know, and then the hem of his garment or his big toe, give it a big smack. And you think, why is this significant? Well, they love it in the East, so let's let them try it out here. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. I don't want them to get to see me all the time. Familiarity can bring contempt. So it's like, and lest we forget, assassination attempts. So we have to be very careful about, you know, when we have a professional staff of food and wine tasters, and he's got a busy little cohort. I don't think he was necessarily paranoid, but I think he was very concerned about, how would they say it now, imaging, making himself, yeah, exactly, hey, Lord and God, hello, good to see y'all. Now, this is a Croatian peasant boy, and his folks, she's probably still, I don't know what he did with his parents, surely he looked after them, but cabbage. If you all cabbage, like cabbage, yeah, I think they had cabbage. I mean, in other words, this is pretty humble to think that he and his advisors consulted this kind of imperial facade based on Eastern traditions. This is very Eastern. Someone like Cicero, they would have fainted. You know, they would have gone like, who are these people? You know, it's like this had nothing to do. This is our Roman Empire. You know, it's all that, the idea of how much it's been changed. It's so different, but he thinks it's good. There was an authoritarian tinge to it, and it's not like he was not aware that there would be others who wanted to replace him. If these tales are true that he himself had displaced his predecessor, then he has every reason to be worried about people around him. I mean, that's just the habit. So he was very, very careful. He must have been to have stayed in power as long as he did. Now, to deal with the growing military problems, he decides to make the split of authority into a permanent, shall we say, status, with 4 parts, 2 senior emperors and 2 junior co-emperors. This is the famous tetrarchy from 4, tetrarchy. 4 rulers with some complications. There will be 2 who will be called Augustus and 2 who will be called Caesars. Those who are the Caesars are the Augusti to be. It's like you have a lot of power, but you're not at the top. So be good, and guess what? I've got a fellow Augustus, but I want everybody to understand I'm still number one. And they say, of course you are, and we love you for it, that kind of thing. And so it's never a question like, hey, bro, we're equals. No. We are both Augusti, but I'm more equal than you are. Okay, so there was never a question of equality between these two. He picked a fellow general, surprise, surprise, as his fellow Augustus, and each would have a lesser emperor as Caesar. This is the famous photograph. I believe it's in your book as well. It's in Milan. Yeah, there it is. I just couldn't resist putting it there because I love the way they all hug it, like it's a big Polaroid, all a pose. It was an interesting relationship that they had, because it was all based on the idea of dealing with that succession problem that we have never solved. Remember, we tried to have the sons, or we would have somebody find some younger person who's very talented, adopt him. Oh, we've had the schemes, but we haven't found one that really worked. This is supposed to work perfectly. When the Augustus dies or retires, whichever comes first, then the Caesar becomes the Augustus. And what will he do? He has a talent search for a new Caesar. See, and then interviews, going through their CVs and checking, seeing who's got that kind of, you'll be a good young fellow. We're glad to have you. Welcome aboard. Tetrarchy. That kind. So it's a tetrarchy, the rule of four. It looks great on paper. Just great. Emphasized on paper. Now, Praetorian prefects. These four are military people. In short, they're not necessarily just, if you forgive the term, paper pushers. So, as military people, they're meeting, they're going hither, thither, and yon, because there are lots and lots of military issues that we will soon see when I get to the map. But the Praetorian prefect is right under them to carry out these vast number of commands that each of these four would have issued. And you can be assured that as bureaucracies have a way of doing, they will continue to grow. I've never heard of a stunted bureaucracy that, it's like kudzu in the South. It just grows and grows. And you can count on Diocletian here, because Diocletian was from the military, and he knew about bureaucracy, and he wanted lots of it for himself, because this is the way that he thought it could function. Now, coming to this map was a true joy for me. Do you know how we have different things that make us happy? Some of you normal people have other ways of being happy. But when a colored map of the Tetrarchy, my whole day it's just beautiful. The lovely colors, and it divided it up, and I was just like, what was it they used to say? My Hercules, by Hercules, like the Romans used to say. It was just a great moment. Now, Look at the Western Caesar. Wouldn't you love that? And yeah, that's 4 out of 4. Bottom of the barrel. Consolation prize. Okay? That is the Western Caesar's world. And you can say, well, that's very hurtful. I know, but in their world, what so many of us just can't get enough of, meaning France and England and so forth, was more or less underdeveloped in terms of the Roman Empire. Look at what the Western Augustus gets. You say, well, that's not bad at all the yellow. You don't need a lot of folks to manage all that, because that's military and civilian. Now, what about your Eastern Caesar? Go lilac, purple. How about that? You say, well, that's nice too. Because it's just hard to pick, isn't it? You just think, yeah, you got your Greece and all of that. And then the best of the best, Diocletian's own lands, and that's your green. And believe me, he knew what he was doing. He wasn't like going saying, oh, shucks, fellas, I'll just take whatever's left over, you know. Don't mind. No, that is primo. I just think that's kind of interesting to bear in mind. That's where the people are, that's where the wealth is. And his capital is way down there in Nicomedia, which is now in Turkey. Nicomedia, and you say, what on earth? Yeah, but that's wrong. He's Roman emperor. And there's a lot of Greek being taught too. Some of them may not even know Latin or gotten a C in it. Mediocrity. So, that's the division. How closely are these lines observed? Basically, give or take. I am sure there was some back and forth, but for some years, that would be the way that they divided the territories. And if that was enough, they redid the system of provinces, creating now, again, a happy moment when I found this map, because this more or less shows you how they're now going to have provinces contained in dioceses. You see the different colors. Now, you see the divisions of Britain in those smaller sizes. Those would be called provinces with governors, and all of that together, that Britain would be called a diocese. That's, of course, where the Catholic Episcopal Church has got the term from those particular divisions. The vicar who would preside over the diocese, and you say, you mean each one of those would have a staff? Uh-huh. You're thinking, uh-oh, assistant to the vicar, deputy associate. Yes, more. Each one on a commission, dental. I don't know what all, but you know it had to be expensive with these dioceses and provinces. Oh, and another interesting little feature. Provincial governors lost all military authority. So provincial governors were now strictly civilian. And now the military will have its own administration to run all of its affairs. And that takes more people. See, in the old days, a provincial governor might well be a military general in addition. Now we split that up completely. And all governors now must answer to diocesan vicars in the format in which you see it. You just wonder, how could all of that have worked very well and very long? It probably didn't. But you can't blame them for trying. There's that idea of this administrative improvements, and I guess some blue ribbon panel or some consultant told them, you know, that's what they do. Tell them this, this is going to be great, man. This is 4th century thinking. We're really going to get this moving. Yeah, right. But that's the idea with the provinces and the dioceses. More and more people were put in the military with an increasing number of units for greater flexibility, meaning that we never know where and when hostilities may occur. It may occur in the north with the Germans. It may occur in the east with the Persians. It may occur in Britain with the folks up in what we call Scotland. Whatever it is, we want them to be ready to go. And of course, we want those generals to remember that they are subordinates. They can be high, but then they can be low, or dead, whichever comes first. That's why those generals, if you wonder, were no longer allowed to be provincial governors. You know, let's face it, Diocletian knew what it was like to be a powerful general before he slipped that something into the cup of the emperor. He didn't want it to be done to him. Safety first, right? So he definitely knew to keep these people on task and limited in the amount of authority they personally had. He must have thought a great deal about this. It would be interesting if he had written his memoirs, you know, how I became powerful and ran the world. But that's part of how he did it during his years. One, I think, of the most fascinating things he did, certainly in the history of economics, is something we heard a lot about way back in 1971. Yeah, exactly. And for those of us who had the television on, as did I could not have been more excited. Because, like many of you, I'm sure, all I could think about was Big D, Diocletian. Yeah. Because in American homes, I'm sure the name of Diocletian came up. Maybe not that much, but there must have been a few who remembered their Roman history and said, maybe not, and said, yes, indeed, this Nixonian move is so reminiscent of the late great Diocletian. But what this attempted to do was something that economists have been attempting to do for a long time. And it is called beating inflation. Who can forget the run buttons under President Ford? Whip inflation now. Yes. Did we whip it? I don't think so. Check your gas pumps, would you? Yeah. Well, the idea, of course, is that even as prices are rising, Diocletian is having currency debased because you make money, or so it seems, quick fix during that very same period. By having debased coinage, inflation will rise. And he said, well, I'm just sick and tired of it, and I'm not going to put up with it anymore. I say, stop inflation. And so he puts out an edict. We actually have this, copies of it they found during the 19th century. It's in Greek, so it's from the East, but it must have been published, I guess, in a variety of languages, certainly in our beloved Latin. But in this particular versions, and you see the year 301, it essentially lets people know what is the highest price that they can charge. Okay? So that's the law of maximum prices and wages. Here are some examples that I thought were kind of interesting. With some obviously consumer stuff, and if you were going to the market, and I thought it was kind of interesting, good wine versus ordinary wine. I think that's what we used to call rock gut stuff, I guess. Don't even know you would want that in your insides. Beef, pork. Well, look at that goose price. Man, I think that's for your higher class. But it has interesting prices, and in essence, this is only a small part of the edict, because we're not just going through grocery prices. We're talking about every kind of market price, whatever it might be. And we name each item too. I mean, it's not like we skip over anything. So for the times and for the people, it's an amazing opportunity, shall we say, for us to look at what kind of consumer society Rome had in that particular period. Let's go now to how he introduces it. It is our pleasure, therefore, that those prices which concise item of the following list indicate be held in attention throughout our whole domain, in such a way that all men understand that freedom to exceed them is removed, while in such a way that all men understand, while at the same time in those places where goods manifestly abound, the happy condition of cheap prices shall not thereby be hampered. An ample provision is made for cheapness. If avarice is limited and curbed. So, bad people, watch out. If you are guilty of attempted avarice, you could get hurt. The government could hurt you. Because therefore it is established fact that among our ancestors also the methods employed in new enactments was that boldness be curbed by prescribed penalty, since very rarely is the status found for men which will benefit them with their free consent. But it is always fear, most just teacher of duties, which will restrain them in the right path. It is our that if anyone have acted with boldness against the letter of this statute, he shall be subjected to capital punishment. So, I mean, it's not like that should work. That's the idea then, that anyone who says, hey, buddy, you want some goose? He said, how'd you get some goose? I've got a lot of goose. I've got it back in this doorway. You want to pay extra for it? Yeah, man, we really wanted to have some goose tonight. Well, you see, they're headed for the big house. Okay? Yeah. So, again, this was considered people who were not wearing their whip inflation now buttons and who were trying to make money on the black market. But you've heard the World War II stories about people who would sell, I think, tires or gasoline or things on the black market. So, I mean, can we be surprised it happened in the Roman Empire? But it's not a few days of hard labor. It's going to be real serious. However, not unlike 1971, this was not a total success, and inflation continued to be an economic problem. The ironic part of this, or at least they say it is that as far as Diocletian was concerned, his issues was making sure the military had all it needed. Meaning, you know, the KP, all the rest of it. Well, they're going to get highly discounted groceries, no worries. No, then, I mean, they're going to get, shall we say, bottom-rate prices. So that's never an issue. This was an effort to help regular folks. And it didn't work, so Diocletian said, well, that's the breaks. Moving on to more issues. But it's very interesting in terms of learning about how the Roman Empire's economy functioned in some ways, and how fortunate that they actually found copies of it. As I say, that particular copy apparently comes from a museum in Milan. The caste, or the sort of career system, became frozen, which is very sad when you think of the strength of an economy and a prosperous people often are based on the opportunity for people of career motivation, enthusiasm, to follow whatever pursuits they wish. However, in Diocletian's view, there were occupations that were simply going vacant, couldn't fill jobs. Was it because people were losing interest in the current world? Was it because they had simply dropped out and were living on whatever they could get? Who knows? But we do know that there were imperial decrees essentially putting yourself in your parents' jobs. You had to stay right where you were. And you see how interesting that would be in terms of Diocletian himself. He could be working in the cabbage field, which is sort of funny when you think about it. That military then as now was the great equalizer, providing the opportunities, I guess you would say, for people to advance themselves in life. But we all need bakers. We love our bakers. I mean, we've got to have our bread and our basic people like that. So your daddy did it, and so will you, and so will the kids. So that's an idea which is brought out in the sources. This is a term, agentes in rebus, which is not, well, it just means doers in things, which means nothing. So it is a Latin term which means secret agents. Remember that secret agent man? I won't sing. But basically, agentes in rebus are people who look like ordinary Romans, but they work for the government. And just say you had an important Roman job, and I seem like I too am an ordinary Roman, but I'm really one of these agentes and rebus, and you admit to me, well, I was out last night partying till all hours, and you've got delicate, important work to do for the Roman government, and of course act so interested, smile, yeah. I want you to trust me. But of course, I intend to turn you in for your debauchery and for the possibility that maybe at this get-together you might have said something about the government. Oh, I don't like my hours. Boy, but those people I work for, they're really losers. Yeah. They are definitely watching you. There is no idea like, well, you know, we all have our different views, but we all love. Give me a big R, give me a big O. You know, it's none of that. There is that sense of, you know, the state and the power. That said, in comparison with our modern world, you read 1984, and the idea of what goes on in this world of ours, how small this would have been in terms of bureaucracy or agents to catch those who were caught up. Or what if you were running around with Persians? Yeah. And you could you see the whole situation. Yeah, I'd turn you in fast. And yeah, but you'd never know that I'd done it because I'm a confidential informant. Okay? You can see I got this big Diocletian t-shirt with a heart D, you know, a heart D or something like that. You would never know. That is the idea that the Diocletian regime was very much based on authoritarianism and power and secrecy. But in comparison with the 20/21st century world, please, they are just beginners. I mean, we really made it, if you call that making it, in terms of spying and confidentiality and all the rest. There are, of course, lots more taxes, but that's hardly surprising. It's not exactly a happy world, but you can survive. However, those who are seriously considering the next world might be in a bit of trouble. Since I planned lectures on Roman Christianity, I don't want to get too much into this now, except to note for you that he was responsible for one of the largest empire-wide persecution of Christians. An effort to wipe them out by forcing communities of Christians to renounce their faith, or else to admit that Diocletian was God or God's representative on earth, or something to the effect that would be in contradiction to Christian belief. Many, of course, did. The interesting thing is that though later Christians, in discussing all this, will try to make him out to be, I guess, some sort of mad dog, he apparently gave it up and lost interest in it. He must not have been too rabid. I think some of his advisors just got this idea that it would be a good project. And you think, well, that's rather weird. Well, from his perspective, I can understand. I think he figured that if you used enough terror and enough threats, you can wipe out people who seem to be, I guess, monotheists who do not view me as godly. But this did not work, did not wipe them out, and he gave it up and moved on with other programs. And yes, he was getting ready for retirement. Most of us find that hard to believe that in ancient times people actually got to retire. Well, I'm not saying there were a lot, but obviously Diocletian had probably built up a nice retirement fund, didn't you think? I think he probably saved and probably put away a little bit every month. And so he decided this was a good time to maybe let people take care of their problems. And so he decided to take a break. And that means that you are now entitled to one as well. Your 5 minutes begin now. I'm not sure how many times we're going to see that emperors get to retire, but as far as Diocletian is concerned, let me make it clear to you that he stayed around long enough to ensure that the Tetrarchy would function to a certain extent after he was out. But once he was out and things weren't going right, he refused to come back even though he was asked. I think more than a few of us will agree with what he said, that retirement was great. he suddenly kind of lost interest, shall we say, in dealing with the problems of Rome. But meanwhile, he had some problems with his Western Augustus, and remember that's his co-emperor, because his co-emperor didn't want to retire. But he said, Diocletian, I want to wish you all the best. I hope you have a great retirement. Send us a card. Let us know how you do. That kind of thing. He said, no, this will mess everything up if you don't retire. There's really not an option here. This wasn't like check a box, mildly interested, very interested. No, you will retire. And so, grudgingly, this individual, who was named Maximian, was retired. We're going to look at how all this is going to play out. But before we do so, let me note one interesting, though complicating, feature. When Diocletian began his tetrarchy, he decided he thought the whole system would work better if everybody got married to a member of the other person's family. And you think, oh, happy times. Yeah. Oh, yes. Just the more marriage, the better. So, that would mean that, in effect, the Western Augustus' daughter would be married to the Western Caesar. And I have reason for bringing up those people in the West. And you say, well, that's nice, but what if what if Cupid had already sent out his arrow? Well, what do? I think move on, okay? You got into it, you get out of it. My daughter's waiting at the altar, so the boss says, you marry my daughter. So that will be the case, that you will have the Augustes' daughters married to the Caesars, with many, many interesting complications resulting from that situation, as you can imagine. And we'll get to specifics shortly. By the way, this was his little condo down in southeastern Europe. On the website, you can get reservations, you get tickets. I'm not getting a fee out of this. I'm just telling you, this is something. If you plan your trips to Croatia, make this a stop. I'm sure they have the Gray Line bus tour. I don't know. I'm just interested to think that enough people sort of caught up with the Diocletian that they would want to get on the bus and hear the tale of Diocletian. It's not the Tower of London, let's face it, Not to be snooty about Roman history, but I don't think as many people know about that as they would know about the 6 wives of Henry VIII or something of that sort. But anyway, it was quite a nice retirement home. It's far from just a terrace apartment. I think it's quite elegant. He did a little gardening and a farming, and, that sort of thing. Basically, and, getting reports about what's going on, with civil wars, or who's killing whom, and that kind of thing. Wow, that's interesting. Huh. You know how you do when somebody talks about whatever, But that's how he lived his last years in what's called. Now, I mentioned that Western Augustus, and Constantius, not to be confused with Constantine. How did he become Augustus? Constantius had been Western Caesar. So, if you want to be unkind, it's almost like being number 4 of 4. That's hurtful. But I don't mean it to be, because it's still very nice to get that honor, to be a Caesar. And gosh, you get Britain and France, right? I mean, you have very little to complain about. But the fact is, Constantius had to be a major military figure to be chosen for this position. Where would he have lived? Well, if you're thinking York, I'm thinking he was probably living along the Rhine-Danube borders, watching the Germanic folks in case anybody got mischievous. And he could use his troops, because he did have primary military responsibilities. So, if the name sounds familiar, there is good reason. But this is not the one whom you seek. This is the father. Constantius, the father of Constantine, who had now become the Western Augustus. And he gained so because we are following Diocletian's plan. However, he died. Had he lived, the lecture would be different today. Very different, but he didn't. So that creates the problem. Because according to the scheme of the Tetrarchy, what should happen now is that Constantius Caesar should have now become Augustus. Is everybody with me on that? The problem is, as always, that people are people, and Constantius' troops realized that Constantius had number 1 son. So they were going, "Go, little C. We want you, man. You're great." "Oh, shucks, fellas. I was just happy to serve you and Dad throughout all." Yeah. And you know that this is going to be Constantine. Now, at the same time, we have the former retired Western Augustus. Remember him? Maximian. And he's saying, "You know, son, I didn't want to leave power. It was that nasty Diocletian that made me do it." He said, "Gee, Dad, that wasn't right." "I know, son, but I'd like to encourage you to do what you think right." You motivating the kid. "Maybe you would like to take power." So, yes, another figure enters this very, very strange business. and his name Maxentius. Maximian, Maxentius, lots of Maxes. But this really does get quite complicated, more characters, sons of either the retired or the dead, and they are now trying to duke it out for power over an empire that is on its last leg anyway, but we're sort of gathering up the parts, the pieces, to see what we can get and how we can get it. But Constantius has his brief period as Augustus. He's gone. Now his son Constantine will be brought up as well as this Maxentius. Constantine was the product of Constantius and what we may say was his concubine or common law wife. I see both terms. Whatever it was, her place, Helena, was not a strong one legally, since, of course, when he became Caesar, it wasn't like see you in divorce court, because she had absolutely no rights. I mean, he just took off and married the daughter of Maximian. If your Maxes are getting you mixed up, remember that this will make Constantius the brother-in-law of Maxentius, because he will be married to Maxentius' sister. Isn't that wild? So, and all of this will be important. Now, when you look at this, you will think, this hardly looks like someone who has lived the hard life of someone in that era. Well, of course, this is a much later artistic version of a saintly woman. She will be Saint Helena. She is given credit for the discovery of the true cross of Christ. She will be a major figure in her son's court, because believe you me, once he does become emperor, the days of being a discarded concubine will be long gone. She's going to be the emperor's mother, which is quite a higher place. And again, it is interesting to think that she had been thrown aside. I don't think that means that he threw aside his son. And I don't think he was rude. I mean, he probably made some payments or something, gave her some maintenance money. I don't know. But the fact is that somehow, when he was told to marry the Western Augustus daughter, it wasn't like, do y'all want to date some and get used to it, or maybe develop a relationship, or I can get some music and y'all can just dance. I don't think it was just, this will be done. So St. Helena just had to move out of the picture. So that's fine. So he's married to Constantius for all the good that it's going to do Theodora. But it will be the way the tetrarchy operates, and she will become a very, very interesting figure in her son's reign and in the future. Her canonization and the reality of her, the tales about her, of course, are another matter. But I believe there are some churches that have canonized both herself and her son, which is interesting. So we know for the record here that she is that interesting figure in both her husband's reign, if you want to call him husband, and her son. He, of course, is one of the towering figures of late Roman history, if I may use that term. You see his dates, and you will note that he does not come right after Diocletian, because those years after Diocletian are what I would call an unpleasant intermission. Now, we have, in time just past, a delightful 5 minutes of joyous conversations, visits to the powder room, a lot of wonderful activities. But I'm telling you, from 305 to the full rule of Constantine, it simply means battle and warfare. And that's how they do things, you know. And then it's all straightened out. It's like having a middle act and an opera, and then by the third act you've got everybody killed off, and then you can focus on who's left. Maybe a Shakespearean play, I don't know. But it does help clear the air in terms of characters. And by 311, he is the ruler. And let me tell you that this may not have been simply a natural occurrence. Yes, there seems to have been the supernatural at the Battle of Milvian Bridge. In that particular battle, Constantine will, the son of Constantius, remember, will overcome the last of his challengers. And that challenger is the son of the original Western Augustus, if that makes sense. That was Maximian, and now his son, Maxentius. And you think, gosh, weren't they kind of cousins? Yeah, it's kind of sad, isn't it? But it happens in the best of families, so let's face it. In fact, according to the tales that are told, Maxentius controlled Rome, and Constantine's armies, hoping to rule, of course, on behalf of his father, knew that Maxentius was a very, very bad man. She said, I love Aunt Theodora, she was really sweet, but he's just no good. And of course, he started hearing voices. Yeah. But I mean, these were voices, good voices. And those voices basically told him, Constantine, there's somebody special who's going to look after you. Well, of course, these are the tales of Constantine discovering the Christian God, or being discovered by the Christian God. I thought, well, this will win the #1 hokiest award. I couldn't find one that was worse. And I looked. There's nothing I won't do to find something. I said, how could anything be worse? And I think, boy, it's got it all, doesn't it? Yes. But there, according to the scene, his opponent, who was worshiping a bunch of idols and was a really loser, capital L, was holding Rome, while the noble Constantine had been told by God that if his troops wore the special symbol in hoax, signal, in case, in this sign you will conquer. God knew Latin, so he said basically with that idea that the soldiers of Constantine would bear the Christian symbol, that the victory of Constantine was certain. And what happens? Just as Constantine had been told. The evil one, meaning, of course, Maxentius, would be defeated, and the people would go, gosh, the people of Rome would go, gosh, we really made a mistake. We were on the wrong team, but now we love you, Big C. You're great. You know, it's amazing how people can find out the truth when the Constantine and his forces are coming into Rome and Maxentius is dead. Now, I want you to remember this just makes Constantine the Western ruler. He'll have an Eastern colleague. This is all about the West. Sometimes people forget that there were still two rulers, one in the East and one in the West. So they're just fighting over the West. So, Maxentius, the pagan, is now dead, and Constantine, who has just thought, wow, Christianity is wonderful, he is now ruler. Oh, I think now you have looked upon the beauty of this painting long enough, and you can probably get big copies to frame for your homes. If you, a tree, yes. It's a beauty, isn't it? Yes. And it makes you think we'll be in June before long, and we start thinking about weddings and brides, and yes. So let's go to Constantius. And if you're in purple, this is going to make it easy now. If you're in purple, that means you get to be emperor. So look at the non-purples. You say, well, there are a lot of some of these, of course, are going to be wives. But you'll see that by his wife, Theodora, who is the daughter of Maximian, you're at the top. He will have children. Just try not to think about that. It just gets really tough. There's Constantine, and you can see he has his golden boy, Crispus, see, by his first wife. And then you see he will have his second wife, and he will have, gosh, look at all the ones who are named variations of Constantine. It takes a big ego for to do that, but he did it, and so we have all of these individuals. And we'll come back to it, but this is essentially the family of Constantine and those of his family who would rule. For how long? Well, through, you see, Julian II until the 360s. With his colleague in the East, the so-called Edict of Milan will come about. And this is so misunderstood, I'm going to stop because nothing can irritate me more than if this is on a test or a final, and someone says Constantine made Christianity the state religion. That just infuriates me. Because it's not just that I'm sorry that they didn't get it right, it's they don't understand how fast all this came. He really couldn't have done this being a smart politician. All he can do, and he can persuade Licinius to do, is to grant that for the first time in their history, the Christians are going to enjoy a legal status. That he himself has a kind of special connection with Christianity may or may not be the case. But it does seem to me that he had reached the point in his career that he understood the policies of Diocletian regarding religion had not worked. So let's try toleration. Now, if he had a special connection, all well and good. But the edict merely grants tolerance. It grants them some compensation for all their losses during earlier times, because the Roman government, in the time of Diocletian, for example, did destroy a lot of Christian property. Licinius may not have been as enthusiastic as Constantine, but they got along okay. I won't say they were loving, but I would say they made a fairly good relationship for the time being. So, all of this is to say, in this so-called Edict of Milan, the Christians now had tolerance to pursue their religion. Some would say, for the Christians, this will be a very bad thing, because now they will enjoy the favor and support of the supposedly neutral emperor. How large was the Christian population? Well, it's said maybe 5% in the West, 10% in the East. You'd think it was a lot more than that, wouldn't you? But perhaps it's all the way that this tale will turn out. Because those, as we're going to see, who were Christians were quite enthusiastic. And once Constantine associates himself with the Christians, he's certainly going to help them grow. Oh, I just love, oh, I saw the emperor and the empress at church last week. Oh, it was wonderful. I sat on a pew near them too. Yeah, we waved. And, I mean, it's where the people, the action, where the in crowd. Remember that song? Yes, and here is the man who told us all about it. Eusebius of Caesarea. He was a historian and a Christian cleric who enjoyed the great favor of Constantine. Well, let's just say it's a mutual admiration society. When we read the works of Eusebius, he talks about the devotion of Constantine. It is said that he was not baptized until he was dying, but that is not necessarily unusual. So you just wait on that. But at the time, he was very involved with the church, which is interesting when you ask, well, how much did he read? Or did he read at all? Was he literate? We don't know. I mean, it's not like My Life and Battles by Constantine. I mean, we love to have an autobiography, though. That would be neat, but we don't. So we have to get all this from these other sources. And Eusebius did very nicely. I believe you'll notice before Eusebius' name, the B word is there, the bishopric. And believe me, those were nice checks coming in every month. So he's not starving, okay? He's not in any way suffering. And he is writing, the life of Constantine and other works about what a noble and pious figure was he. And yes, So there's not a lot of negativity. I'm not saying it's a total play up, but it's close to it. But it's very, very important source. And now, this is, Father, you see this, and now such a massive impiety oppressing the human race, whew, and the commonwealth in danger of being utterly destroyed, as is by the agency of some pestilential disease, and thereby needing powerful and effectual aid. What was the relief? And by divinity is meant the one who is alone and truly God, the possessor of almighty and eternal power, and surely it cannot be deemed arrogance in one who has received benefits from God to acknowledge them in the loftiest terms of praise. What on earth is he going on and on about? Well, I'll tell you what. Those Christians, which I just associated myself with, are in a big hullabaloo, and it's really rocking my boat. I myself then was the instrument whose services he chose. Modest and esteemed, suited for the accomplishment of his will. And he goes on, I banished and utterly removed every form of evil which prevailed in the hope that the human race, enlightened through my instrumentality, oh, I'm just an instrument, shucks, might be recalled to a due observance of the holy laws of God, and at the same time our most blessed faith might prosper under the guidance of his almighty hand. And yes, the Council of Nicaea. What's a nice emperor doing in a place like this? And you really have to ask yourself, how would Constantine have sat through those theological sessions? I was thinking, because you see him, he stands out in the crowd. The rest are bishops and theologians, and they're having a most interesting Trinitarian discussion on the members of the Trinity. And I could see Constantine thinking, my horses need some exercise. Or, I've got some weapons that need using. Some folks need killing. But they're not calling for a break. It would be like if you didn't get your 5-minute break, you would be really, really mad. And I am sure that he had to sit there and listen to all of this because he did not get trained in theology. And these folks are not going to have nice, friendly chats. Well, I just love you, but I don't agree with that point of view. But it's a really interesting point of view. No. I think they were fussing and hollering. Because the question of the reality of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost as Trinity was a hot topic in Christianity. And it was determined at the Council of Nicaea. And he said, in effect, now y'all get in there and let's get this settled. And nobody said, well, who are you to be talking to us, you layman? You ignoramus. You haven't got a degree in theology. But that's really funny. Nobody said that. I think they said, you're wonderful. We love you. I think we call that sycophancy. But anyway, he was there, and, look at that crown. Got a little halo going for him, doesn't he? So, yes, and they're thinking, we just want to make the right decision. Why? Because we love you, that's why. So, what is he? He can't be God anymore, but you know what he can be? He can be the light under God. God, me, you. Okay, so that's kind of good. I mean, it's like it's better than you. and it's way better than anybody else. So that is how he will view himself now, as a kind of Christian God. In 325, you can go, oh, shucks, you Christians, I'm a pagan, man. I love paganism. I want idols. Idols are the way to go, man. You're on a losing streak, okay? You're going down, man. You just don't know. But if you're in that 4th century, in the day of Constantine, you better enjoy your idols, because your days are numbered. And that is the way it is. At the Council of Nicaea, it was decided that the Trinity would be the established view of the church. And the reason I'm just sweeping by this is because I'm going into it later. Just to note at this point, he's going, wow, time for you all to go home now. Thanks for your work. I've got a war to fight. I've got enemies to pursue, and all this theology. It really gives me a headache. So, but it's Trinity all the way, okay? And if you don't like the Trinity, you're a loser, so shut up and get out. So that's the way it's going to be. He's also, of course, pleasing northern minarets. He is also responsible for the development of Constantinople. I know many of you have been to Istanbul, at least watching a James Bond movie maybe, but it is quite a beautiful place, and it will be his creation in many ways. Diocletian had Nicomedia. Constantine said, I think I'd like to have my own place. You say, well, what about taxpayers' money? Well, heck, they don't want me to be uncomfortable. I'm sure they would like for me to have a nice city. On the ruins of what had been Byzantium, an old Greek city, this new city, fittingly called Constantinople, after you know who, no self-esteem issues there. That will be what will become, in the 20th century, Istanbul, and one of his great accomplishments. Some have called it the Second Rome, and in many ways it deserves that title. No one less than Gibbon would go on with the idea that as long as Constantinople continued as a Christian Roman city, that is 1453, the Roman Empire was in essence still alive. So that's how important it would be in Roman history. And certainly for our purposes, extremely important. A beautiful place and highly symbolic of the roles now of East and West. Because Constantinople was by no means Western, but it was Rome away from Rome, if you will. This area now, just to make sure that you're clear, I just put it on the modern map, and you see where Constantinople was, Istanbul, way over there, the western part of Turkey, and then you see Nicomedia. So they're not that far apart, I guess, if one were in that particular part of the world. But it was and became almost immediately one of the great cities of that age and that world, the Christian world, one of the major cities, because as Constantine was Christian, and therefore Christianity, as in Rome, would flourish greatly. Would it be that Constantine had not had certain family issues? He married twice. His first wife gave him a beloved son by the name of Crispus. He was remarried for political reasons to Fausta. This apparently is a statue of her as a young woman. You say, wow, she didn't get to live very long. No, she didn't. Now, she had a number of children, but for whatever reason, some have said she accused Crispus of raping her. She accused Crispus of some deeds of which she did not approve. Constantine had his own son executed. Now here comes mother. Whose mother? Constantine's mother. Helena goes to her son Constantine the emperor and says, you know she was lying about your son, don't you? Constantine, believing his mother, says, well, now I hate her, so I think I'll execute her too. Yeah. So, that was a little bit of domestic unpleasantness, I would think. In other words, I don't want you to leave thinking everything was great. This is rather unpleasant. Now, why was he married too fast in the first place? She was the daughter of his counterpart in the East. So again, you have that connection. And what does that mean for the mother of Crispus? She's kind of lost her job. That's what happens, though. They were sort of continuing its semblance of the tetrarchy with the eastern and western rulers. But now Crispus is gone, and Fausta is gone, but not Fausta's children. So her sons will now become his heirs. The heirs of the children, interestingly, by that second wife. The second wife who caused his beloved son to be executed. Strange but true, but I couldn't resist without that story. But how could I not mention Julian? How many remember when the book by Gore Vidal came out? Now I'm reaching back. This was one of, if you were a Gore Vidal fan, he was one of the most successful novelists of the 60s, I will say. Gore Vidal had a number of interesting likes and dislikes. And among his dislikes was Christianity. Julian, a member of Constantine's family, died while fighting Persians, but also after hearing Christians fight among themselves in favor of various Christian positions of dogma, decided he didn't want to be a Christian anymore. Let's let the people go with their gods. We know you love the gods. Just love on your gods. And I'm going to follow philosophy. Because all this fussing about trinities and sacraments and gospel, it really has gotten on my nerves. I grew up in a very difficult home where they were fighting about theology, and I was listening. I'm going to do philosophy, y'all do gods, and we'll all do beautifully. If it hadn't been for the Persians, maybe it would have worked. He died while fighting the Persians in 363. Did he really say? He is known as Julian the Apostate for a reason. Yes. Because, I'll go up to a student and I'll say, do you know anybody who's apostatized? And they say, no, I didn't. I say, yeah, good. Because many do not know that word. We don't talk about apostasy too much anymore. But the Christians promptly labeled him as Julian the Apostate because he renounced Christianity. And he did so like saying, you can do as you please, but I'm into philosophy, I just, give me Plato, give me Aristotle, and give me Zeno. I love all my guys. This kind of thing. I just don't want any of you fussing and fighting. You've probably never been to a philosophy convention because they can carry on too. But maybe not like the theologians, I don't know. In any event, Julian the Apostate is, as far as I'm aware, the last of the non-Christian emperors. Here it is. Oh, yes. It's certainly, if you were a Gore-Vidal person, you couldn't wait to get a copy. The idea being he was noble, following philosophy, he was enlightened, and those nasty Christians with all their dogmatism, he put them aside. It's an interesting book. It's not history, obviously, it's just a novel, but it was certainly a big hit for him in that particular era. The fact is, though, that by the time of Julian the Apostate, the Christians, in terms of their institutions, in terms of their royal prestige vis-a-vis the emperors, with just that little 2-year period of Julian, were ready for a higher position. And that would finally occur under the emperor, no longer part of Constantine's family, Theodosius the Great, who would make Christianity Rome's state religion. You remember all the cool people that say, "See you later, I'm going to go to a big idol worship service." Well, that's against the law now, people. You're headed. We'll send out the police on you. Okay? You could be fined for that. They'll catch you with idols. That is where that comes from. From him, 379 to 395. So, if you're going to a party and they start talking about Constantine making Christianity the state religion, before anybody has too much wine, you tell them it was Theodosius. Don't tolerate that. I don't want fights, but I don't want incorrect information either. The Theodosian Code, oh boy, we got to put in the laws now. It's not enough to just say everybody's going to be Christian. You've got to enact it legally. And this will occur under Theodosius' successors. And that is making Christianity required. And you go, I don't know, man. I just don't think I'm ready for that. Really? Well, we've got news for you. But as for the others, put it in red so you couldn't miss it. Since in our judgment they are foolish madmen, we decree they shall be branded with the ignominious name of heretics, the big H. Okay? They will suffer in the first place the chastisement of divine condemnation. Ooh. And the second, the punishment of our authority. Double trouble. Okay? So, you around with idols? You want to go to a pagan service? I think not. You say, but I thought we were all just going to be tolerant. We got over that. Okay, we got over it in a fit of toleration. That was nice, but it was a step to truth. And so you losers, you just get away from those idols, and there will be specific regulations as to who can worship what, and the whole idea of the persecuted minority of Christians will now mean that those who deviate from Christians will now find them as those who will now be persecuted. And this too will be a part of the fascinating relationship of Rome and Christians. And there we'll start next week, I think. Thank you very much. Thank you.